Welcome everyone to the main stage here at the Boston Marathon Expo. My name is Jay Holder, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. And as you prepare for your marathon this week, we want to talk about the last time we all got together and celebrated a world-class marathon. And it may seem like it was many moons ago, but it was actually just 6 months ago, the U.S. Olympic Team Trials Marathon right here in Atlanta. I'm joined by the first three men to cross the line and earn a spot on Team USA for the Olympic Games in Tokyo next summer now. Please help me in welcoming Abdi Abdirahman, Jake Riley, and Galen Rupp. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
So guys, we've all been in isolation and different levels of quarantine since we all last saw each other in person. You're all teammates now and have been teammates now for 6 months. Oh, and we lost Abdi. There he is. Is he coming back? All right. Well, welcome to Zoom, everybody. You're all teammates now. Have you seen much of each other? Have you talked to each other since the trials?
Not really.
So
Yeah,
this is like a team reunion.
I haven't
seen anybody.
Quarantining and getting by how we can.
Yeah,
So
I basically see the same 5 people every week, and that's about as big as my group goes. It's like home to the trail and then back, and that's about all I do.
So we'll set the stage. Jake, you're in Boulder. Galen, you're in Portland, or are you in Beaverton?
Portland.
Portland, and Abdi, you're somewhere in between Tucson and Flagstaff. You pulled over to a rest stop to talk to us.
Yes, sir.
But you're based in Flagstaff, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Flagstaff, yeah.
So not bad places to be quarantining, I guess, if you've got to quarantine somewhere. What does running for you guys look like in the absence of racing? I'll start with you, Jake. I know you've done a couple of small head-to-head virtual events, but are you training as usual?
Yeah, I mean, one of our goals is just to get into a regular training schedule. I mean, you can't just take the time off, so you want to get into some sort of rhythm. I'm kind of seeing this as an opportunity to maybe fill in some of the gaps in my training that opened up when I kind of had that long time dealing with my Achilles injury. So treating this as an opportunity to go out and do some faster stuff and maybe focus on getting back on the track and trying to get a couple extra gears, which I certainly feel like I've lost. And so this summer has been a lot about rust busting. So those virtual races they weren't very impressive in terms of times. I also had a little trouble with motivation. So it's trying to find ways to make it at least interesting and exciting. So, do stuff I don't normally do. So the other night we did like a 2-mile, which I don't think I've done an official 2-mile since senior year of high school. So, just getting back on the track to do a distance that I don't normally do, doing more mile races than I probably otherwise would. So in terms of mileage, probably about the same. But then what we're kind of building up towards and the kind of the balance of the training is maybe a little bit different, trying to do some stuff that, I wouldn't be doing if this were like a normal kind of year-long build-up type of thing.
You said something in there, and I want to toss this one to you, Galen. You said you can't really stop running, and that's partly because we don't know when racing is going to come back. It could come back next month, or it could come back 3 months from now. So, Galen, do you feel like you always kind of need to be somewhat in shape so you're ready to race when it does return?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a delicate balance. You don't want to obviously kill yourself. I think the worst thing you could do is end up getting hurt, during this time and really, set yourself back for the future. So kind of similar to Jake, I've really been looking at this as a time to work on a lot of the deficiencies that I have. We actually had the same surgery. I think he had his a year or two before me, but it's a long slog back, and there's certainly a lot of things that I have that I can do to get better. And so I've really been doing a lot of shorter stuff, really working on my speed again and getting that back, which I think ends up translating a lot to the marathon, ironically, and helping out with efficiency. Especially with the paces a lot of people are running nowadays. You gotta be able to run 4:20, 4:30 in the middle of a marathon, relatively easily, and then still be able to bounce back and get back into a normal rhythm. So, we've really been hitting the speed hard. I've probably been running about, I'd say 95 miles a week on average, and then, another 15 or so in the hydro works in the water. So about 110 altogether. And so nothing crazy, but still not like I'm doing nothing. And I'm starting to ramp up now a little bit more. And it's just really been trying to use this time to get better. I think that's the biggest thing. Is it's obviously a bummer and a drag what's going on as far as racing and all that. But Mike and I really try to use this time to just continue to look for ways to get better and do things that would be really hard to do if I was in a normal marathon buildup, getting ready for the Olympics, coming off the trials if they were this summer. It would have been really hard to, do a lot of this stuff. It would have been, all right, you take a little bit of downtime, after the trials to rest and recover, and then you're ramping back up and doing big miles and big workouts, pretty quickly to get ready for the Olympics. So it's a little bit, you have a little bit more time, obviously, with it being postponed a year, but hopefully, a lot of athletes use this time to either get healthy, like myself, and work on some things that maybe they wouldn't be able to do normally, and hopefully everybody's better off, that much better for next year.
Abdi, you've had such a long and successful career that spans 6 Olympic cycles. I can't imagine you've had a down period that's lasted this long. How are you staying fit, and how are you staying motivated and in shape during this time?
Frozen.
He might have fallen asleep in his car at the rest stop, or we lost him.
Yeah,
All right, we'll come back to Abdi. As we know, the Olympic Marathon in Sapporo, you guys have both alluded to it, and Sapporo postponed now until 2021. How is this, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, how has this altered each of your plans? Galen, I'll start with you, the U.S. champion. You were obviously in incredible shape back in February. What did you and Coach Smith discuss when the announcement was made beyond the speed portion of it? I know that is this giving you more time to come back from that surgery that you talked about?
No, absolutely. I mean, just selfishly speaking, it could be a really good thing for me to have a lot more time. I've been really hitting the weights hard and doing a lot of strengthening stuff that I just needed to do, to continue to build that leg back up. I lost a lot of muscle and I lost a lot of strength, not just in my Achilles, but that whole left side. And so, trying to get my mechanics back and getting balanced has been the biggest thing. I was really blessed and fortunate to have, pretty good mechanics before I got hurt, where I was, my left and right side were really equal. And I think that's always the biggest thing, is you don't want any big differences between the two sides. And, even going back and looking at the race in Atlanta, I was pretty surprised. My wife told me pretty bluntly right afterwards that she thought I looked pretty terrible, at least through 20 miles. She said 20 miles you started to look a little bit better. But I was kind of surprised to hear that, because I felt pretty good. But going back and looking at it, there's certainly a real big hitch in my stride, and just not getting a lot out of that left leg like I would have hoped. So, we really just tried to be fluid. Obviously, at the time, right after the trials, nobody knew what was going to happen with all this COVID stuff and how it was going to look later. So, we really just tried to take it almost 1 week at a time, and again, just keep working on those little deficiencies. And then when it became clear what the racing picture was going to look like, we were ready to get back into a build-up pretty quick for that.
Jake, you obviously have an experience with this injury, as Galen mentioned, and you mentioned earlier, you both had the surgery for Hageland's deformity. It took you a while to bounce back from it, but you bounced back, arguably stronger and better than you ever were in your career. What was the thing? What was the thing that got you to where you are now?
Well, not just kind of getting the surgery, but like pretty much everything in my life changed. So when I started getting the Achilles stuff, I was training with the Hansons in Michigan, which is a very different place in my life. And so then I moved home, and then I moved out to Colorado. So I've been working with a new coach. I have a strength coach now. I'm at altitude, and I think, all of those different factors are kind of contributing to just kind of being in a better place. I'm definitely taking a more holistic approach. One of the things that I probably spent 2 years trying to non-surgically rehab my Achilles, and then I got the surgery, and then I had to rehab from that. And like, you spend that amount of time just having to work on all these little ticky-tacky things off to the side. You can't train, you can't put races on the schedule. It certainly makes you, one, not ever want to go back there. So I think I'm much more on top of my game in terms of not just paying attention to my body during training, but like making sure I'm being really consistent with like, prepping and, rolling and stretching and stuff before and after, and like staying on top of strength work and making sure that I'm, staying on top of like massage and PT even when I don't feel something, because to go back into that hole is I'd never want to go through that kind of just arduous process again. So I think I'm just a more focused runner. And then I think also I was certainly in a position there towards the end, right before I got the surgery, where I was contemplating whether or not running was even going to be a thing that I could do anymore, not just even a professional level, but just training for any sort of real racing at all. And so I was kind of looking down at like, you might have to find a different thing to do with your life or a different sort of thing to build your world around. And so to come back and to have these opportunities again, I think I have a different kind of appreciation, and I think I'm a little bit more willing to put some things on the line and to risk it, because I feel like this is all just gravy time at this point. Yeah, all of those things kind of contribute to, I think, just making me a much more enthusiastic participant in running.
I was going to try to pitch a question to Abdi again, but he's vanished yet again. I do want to go back to the trials. It was a day where almost everything went right at every level. The weather, the crowds, obviously for all three of you, the race itself. Galen, I did not think you looked terrible, but your wife would probably know better than I would. We didn't really know that it would be the last hurrah. Like, I don't think any of us there thought that this was being the last time we were all going to get together for a while. Galen, do you think about that at all, about how lucky we were to sneak that last one in?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think just, especially, obviously hindsight's 2020, but looking at the way everything played out, I feel just incredibly fortunate that we were able to just get that race in, and obviously, there was no track Olympic trials. A lot of sports didn't get to have their trials in, and everything's been postponed. So there's a great, I think, peace of mind for all of us, knowing that, we already had a trials race. We're on the team. All we have to worry about now is being at our best for Tokyo next year and in 2021. But I think we were incredibly fortunate. I was talking to Mike, and I think the indoor championships they were the next week or right after, the trials, and they got canceled. So it was kind of right in the nick of time that the trials race went on and was able to go forth. But yeah, there's a lot of people that really are hurting and, suffered a lot from having stuff postponed or just straight up canceled. I look at talking to him and just thinking about his kids, all the seniors, and they don't get that time back. That's kind of a one-time thing. And, NCAA championships are senior year, and all of a sudden that's all canceled. So yeah, certainly I felt incredibly fortunate that we were able to get that race off, and hopefully everybody, stayed safe over there.
You guys all talked after the race. You took part in a celebration. I've looked back on pictures of it, and there are hugs all around, something we don't see a whole lot of anymore. But we couldn't hear what you guys were saying. Jake, what were you guys saying to each other in those first 2-3 minutes after you all became team members of Team USA?
Honest, I have to guess, because I don't really remember. There was a little bit. I'm certainly, it was like congrats and high fives. I was a little bit distracted because, like, well, first of all, there were people kind of shoving me this way and that, and then I was so concerned, like, where's my coach? Where are my parents? Where's my girlfriend? And just kind of going from one place to the other, just not having any idea like what I was supposed to do or how to handle the situation. It was a very big deal for me to have made it back for Chicago, and then to be just in a position at the end of the race. And then, Galen had, I think, a much more enjoyable last few miles than I did, where, I was 4 guys for 3 spots. And so I didn't actually know I was going to make this team until like 2 seconds before I crossed the line. And so there was all this kind of like stress and sort of overwhelming adrenaline going into it. So I don't remember any words being spoken. I kind of have to look back at those pictures to even remember kind of the sequence of events. Yeah, just hugs. I mean, I guess I remember Galen's high five when I crossed the line. That was a big moment for sure.
I'll put you both on the spot. Were either of you surprised to see the other guy, or Abdi? Like, no, I did not expect Jake to be the one coming across the line. Or what? Galen won? Were you shocked at all by who the results were?
I was a little bit shocked to see myself there. And I honestly, I guess I was a little bit surprised, like, mainly because Abdi not just was there, but kept hitting back. Because, like, I caught the pack with 2 miles to go. And I was like, okay, this is your chance. Like, you got the momentum on your side, and you can break them. You can put in a hard move here. You're going to get yourself a gap. They're tired. And Abdi just would not break. And not only that, he kept coming back on me. So I'd open a gap on the down. He'd open a gap on the up. And then we kept going back and forth like that. And he even, I don't know how much of a chatty guy he is. I haven't been in a ton of races with him, but, like, he talked to me a couple of times. And so, yeah, I just remember I grew up with Abdi, right? So I'm kind of like a slightly different generation. I've been watching Abdi race for a long, long time. So I know just how tough of a runner he is. But, like, to actually be next to him and just see him muscling himself through sheer force of will to keep battering when it was, all those like little wind tunnels and all those hills over the last couple miles, like that was very impressive. And certainly, I don't know that it should have been surprising because we know how talented Abdi is, but like, if not surprising, very, very impressive.
Any surprises for you, Galen? Were you surprised when it was Jake and Abdi coming right behind you?
I mean, yeah, that's the beauty of the Olympic trials is you never know what's going to happen. I think, every year that there's an Olympic trials, everybody has their predictions and you can go in and looking at a race on paper, oh, we think these are the top 3 guys or the top 3 girls, but it never ends up playing out that way. And I think that's the beauty of that race where, I guess I don't know if I would say surprised about the other athletes that made it, but I guess I would just know that you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of that race and how it played out. So it was fun. I had a pretty good seat at the finish line, watching Jake and Abdi come in and, obviously career was right behind them. So it was a great race for those last 2 spots. And, I'll just say real quick, going back to your question before, I remember, seeing Jake and I'm pretty sure I told him this afterwards, maybe he doesn't remember, but I love the fact that he bet on himself. People that aren't aware, he didn't have, I don't think you had a contract going into that. You wore the Alpha Flies, but you went in betting on yourself to make that team. And that was, I think, it's just such a great story, and I love it when people do that. He wasn't about to take a sure thing. He put everything in. And I think when there's a little bit more on the line like that, obviously there's a lot because it's the Olympic trials, but, he went into that race just knowing that, like he kind of said earlier, this might be my last chance. And he went in there and he got the job done. And, I think things have worked out well for him since then. But I just thought it was really, really cool. And I wanted to make sure that, I told him that afterwards, that it's pretty awesome because you don't see that a lot in sports of, guys or girls really going all in and believing in themselves. And when the stakes are at their highest, betting on themselves and then getting the job done. So I thought that was a really, really cool thing.
Let's talk about that, Jay, because I did want to ask you, you had that great run in Chicago in the fall and, top American there, and you came into the trials. I'm sure you had shoe sponsors and apparel sponsors beating down your door, but you came into the trials. Well, at least calling. I'm sure you're getting phone calls. You came into the trials saying, I can maybe do better. And I think you were a dark horse, but maybe not the guy that everybody expected to be in the top 3. How has life changed since being an Olympian, becoming an Olympian?
Well, first off, I am no longer unsponsored. So I signed with On Running. And yeah, I think that was kind of the big thing in Galen's. That's very gratifying to hear. I really appreciate that. But yeah, after Chicago, there was certainly some interest, but at the same time, talking with Lee beforehand, signing a contract was not going to so radically change what I was able to do in training that it made sense to mess with a formula that really worked. And so our idea was like, we're going to roll all the dice on the trials here. Like, we know that you can be successful with this model. Let's not kind of give away the farm just to, have somebody's name on your chest. If we're going to sign a deal, we want it to be with someone that like is committed to the long haul and is really interested in kind of a long-term development, seeing you through. And so that was going to be the kind of opportunity that a successful race at the trials afforded. And so certainly, there was a little bit of a dip there, right? Right after the trials, we had a ton of interest and we were talking to all these companies and it was going to be a really quick decision process, we thought. And then, COVID happens and everybody had to kind of shut down and nobody knows what their budgets are going to be. But then we were able to talk to On and kind of get on the same page with them and talk to them about, what's it going to be like developing the next generation of technology and how we're going to move forward, able to promote each other and all this kind of stuff. So if anything, it gave us a little bit more time to kind of work and find the exact right fit of a company to work with. So yeah, certainly the opportunities, I guess, just in general, specifically with, that kind of sponsor, but also, these other kinds of, maybe speaking engagements, all the kind of stuff. It certainly has taken me to a much higher profile than I ever was at before. I was always a little bit of a B-lister. And so this is certainly putting my name on a few other lists. And so I get to come out and do cool stuff like this, which wasn't really in the cards before.
But that's an incredible pressure to perform. You're going into maybe, the most important race of your life and you put this added layer of pressure on yourself. How do you get past that?
Well, so through, I left the Hansons, and then at that point I was unsponsored, and I was getting back into running because I love running, and I wasn't ready to kind of give up on goals or anything like that. But, it was a 3-year process, and I was doing other stuff in the meantime. I'm going to grad school and a couple other things. So, during that time, one, I had to find motivating factors that weren't financial, or it was mostly like get healthy and enjoy running again. But also, I essentially built my life up in such a way that I could continue to compete and train for as long as I wanted to and support myself with another way. So I guess maybe in a little bit of a way, it was kind of giving a finger to the world and sort of lower expectations or whatever it was. But I don't need this race to either validate the amount of effort that I put into coming back. And even if this thing doesn't turn out, it's not like I will stop running or like be unable to do what I want to do anymore. It will certainly be disappointing, but I didn't really feel a whole lot of pressure as like, this is going to make or break my career or going to decide whether or not I'm going to be able to train or compete anymore. My life was already set up in such a way that I would be able to continue to do this after the trials, regardless of the outcome. Lee was still committed, and strength coach was still committed, and it wasn't going to change the way things were, and the way things were pretty good. There was only going to be positives. So, I think one of the advantages to being a little bit of a dark horse is there wasn't a whole lot of pressure, right? Like if things hadn't worked out, no one's going to like side eye me, like what a blow up, right? Because no one was really expecting me to make the team anyway. So I only stood to have upside at that point.
I'm going to check and see if Abdi's there because I can see his screen out. Abdi, are you there?
I'm here. I'm still here.
Okay, great. I can't see your picture, but I see your phone is there. So I'll bring you into the conversation. Between you and Galen, you'll have 9 Olympic appearances. You flashed to 5 crossing the line. One of my favorite moments of the games. Going into your 5th Olympics, what's your advice for the Olympic rookie, Jake?
Just enjoy the moment. Something that you accomplish. Something that you work hard for it. It's not a fluke. You put the work on. It's a dream that you had. When you get to the Olympics, enjoy it. That's what we all work for. Trying to be an Olympian, and it's also there's nothing better than representing your country and your friends and your family. So enjoy the moment.
The 5th time around, does the moment get any less cool than it was the first time?
I think this was the sweetest one, to be honest. The 5th one, it was the hardest one to make, and I know how much, the people always see when you cross the finish line, but they don't know what goes through the back, leading toward that moment. It just is a lot of hard work, dedication. I know. And also the motivation of making this team came from the 2016 when I missed the Olympic trials. Just 2 weeks out of the trials, I got injured, and I know anything can happen. And just getting to the starting lineup, that was for me just a dream come true. I was just so excited. I remember the gun went off. I just went to the front, man. And I said, we're going to run through that as hard as we can. So, I was just so happy to be the starting lineup that day. So, just because I was remembering 2016, I didn't make to the trials. I didn't make to the starting line. And also Galen making the team. I know Meb make the team. I know what's his name.
Jared.
The guy was there. What's his name? Damn it.
Jared Ward.
Yeah, Jared Ward made the team. So, and knowing that if I would have been there that day, I would have made the team. I would have been one of those guys. That was just my motivation. And I said, today's my day. And I did everything in my power to get ready for this trials. And I did it. And just remembering, and also, me and Galen, we've been in a couple Olympics together, but just making this team was even sweeter. I remember I ran Galen when he was in high school. I think he was sophomore or freshman. He used to come around with me when I was in Oregon. So I used to take him up in the mountain every day after the school. He would come around with me and say, "Hey, Abdi, let's go run." So, it was just sweet. Just like something, I feel like running like with my son, that's if I wouldn't have a son at that time, we would be making the team with my son. So it was sweet.
Well, Because your second out of this, I moved not too long ago, buddy. Earlier this winter, and I was cleaning out my old house, and I found you gave me a number, I think, from pre-classic, and I must have been, I think sophomore, maybe junior in high school. I still had that all these years hanging out in my house.
Yeah.
The age difference between you guys is about 11 or 12 years, right? Galen, are you 35, 34?
I'm 34.
34, and so Abdi, you
Years, yeah, man, I'm 32.
you
I'm
say
43.
yeah. And we have not started counting you out at all yet, Abdi. And one of the things I was asking earlier, I think when we lost you, is this has got to be the longest break in racing in your very long and accomplished career. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. You know, the longest I've been out racing was almost 3 months. You know, but that 3 months was due to an injury. You know, this kind of pandemic. You know, the COVID-19 kind of affected everybody, and you just have to look at it a different way. This is something that is everyone in the world dealing with. It's not something I'm dealing with or my friends. You know, just not like a personal thing. It just it's bigger than sports. It's something that affects the whole world, and you know, just at the end of the day, you just have to adjust it. You know, for me, I'm doing like 70 to 80 miles a week. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just trying to maintain fitness. And, you know, as for us, it's kind of difficult, you know, as like marathoners, road runners, we don't have that much opportunity to race. Like track people can go do 1 mile, 3K, you know, 5K, you know, but for us, we don't have that much opportunity. Even in the US now, we don't know when the road racing is going to come back. But at the end, we're just doing the best we can, just maintain fitness and just work on your weaknesses. And I'm just like doing some mileage now, nothing special. Just, you know, let my old body get rest. Hopefully I can be fresh next year, 1 year younger.
I want to ask one last question about the trials to you, Galen, because unlike these guys, you came in as the favorite. You're the defending champion. You had the fastest time in the field. But I think both times you've gone into the trials, once you had the asterisk of, yeah, but this is his first marathon. And then the second time you're coming back from that surgery we've talked about. What was the harder obstacle to overcome, the first time or the injury?
I mean, in a lot of ways, they were a little bit similar for me. You know, there's just a lot of unknowns. I think that was the biggest thing. You know, obviously the first time I ran it in 2016, that was the very first marathon I'd ever run. You know, I think I had gone 20 miles a couple of times in training, but that was the farthest I'd ever run. So, you know, there's always, I believed in all the work that I'd done, and I knew that I was ready to go. But yeah, there's always that piece. And I remember talking about it before the race, and just saying like, man, you know, I don't know what to expect. You know, it's just such a completely new experience for me. I've gone 20 and felt pretty good, but you know, the last 6 miles, a lot of people say that halfway at a marathon is really at 20 miles. So I didn't know what to expect. But, you know, again, it's all you can ever do when you're facing that uncertainty is fall back, you know, on the work that you've done and the training and the preparation. And, you know, I thought I had a pretty conservative race plan there to just really sit back. And, you know, I was under pretty strict instructions to not do anything until at least 20 miles. You know, that was the earliest that I could go. I think my coach wanted me to even wait a little bit longer, to even just a mile or two to go. And, but I felt good, and it ended up working out all right there. And then, you know, this year in 2020, you know, like you said, I had that surgery. I tried to run in Chicago a year later in the fall, and that did not go well. You know, my body just really broke down, and I could barely walk for a week after that. And so it was you know, again, another lot of unknowns going into the trials, you know, in 2020. And I was really fortunate. You know, I ran a pretty good half. I think I ran 62 minutes about a month out before Atlanta, and that gave me a lot of confidence. I did a workout afterwards, so it ended up being a pretty long day. And, you know, I think just doing a lot of stuff in training, you know, I did some runs that were over the marathon distance, and I had a lot of confidence that, you know, my foot was going to hold up and be good. And, but yeah, there's still, you know, I've never raced a marathon. It had been, you know, by that time, probably, 2 years since I'd really finished a marathon and run well in one. So yeah, I was certainly a little bit nervous heading in, but again, all you can do in that is fall back on all the work that you've done. And, you know, Mike had me very well prepared for all the hills. You know, I did a lot of work. It's really hilly around my house, so I did a lot there, especially at the end of long runs, and did a lot of runs on the treadmill where it was just, you know, constant up and down, you know, no flat time at all, which was really what that course in Atlanta was like. And, you know, once I got out there, any excuse you have, it doesn't really matter at that point. It's just, you got to get the job done. And, it was for me when I got there, just about really locking in and being as focused as possible and just executing, and it ended up working out, fortunately.
You said something that I think applies to not just the members of Team USA, but to anybody who's trying to run a marathon for a time. And that is that the race is 20 miles and then a 6-mile race. Can you guys kind of give some advice to the people who are getting ready for their Boston Marathon today or this week on how you hold yourself back, especially when you know you're fit, how you hold yourself back to have something in the tank for those last 6 miles? And Abdi, I'll start with you. How do you hold on for those last 6 miles? How do you make sure you're ready to go when the real race begins? Thought we had him there. All right, Jacob, pitching it to you.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, so we have a workout here with Lee that we do called Tellerfarm, which is, it's like a 4-mile, very, very hilly tempo. And then you go straight into a 5K time trial.
Just enjoy the first 20 miles. That's what I always say, just do something you're supposed to. Just enjoy that.
We're having trouble hearing you, Abdi. If you disconnect and come back in, we might get you back. You're breaking up. I think you're somewhere in Arizona where there's not a whole lot of cell phone service. Jake, I've run a Tellerfarm. It's pretty hilly.
Yeah, and then you go straight into a 5K time trial where you just press as hard as you can. And I do that is kind of how I think breaking down the marathon kind of works out. Like really thinking of that first, it could be 15, it could be 18, it could be 20. But I think certainly a lot of mistakes or a lot of times when I hear somebody had a bad marathon, it'll be followed by, I was just feeling so good at halfway. I was just feeling so good at 13. But that's the problem is, right? You prepare to go 26, you should be feeling good at 13. So I think people feel that good early on. Like, okay, well, let's bank some time here. Let's feel good.
So I apologize, but not bad reception.
But you're not going to.
I'm just back. We'll get right back to you. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, the wheels aren't going to fall off until 18 to 20, right? You're not going to know that you made a mistake until the very end there. And so, yeah, really thinking of it as I'm going to do 20. And, if the more experience you get with it, I think you can play with that number. But thinking of that first 20 is this is a tempo, this is a rhythm section. This is me staying contained within myself and feeling good. And then if I'm still feeling good at 20, that's when I can rip it and almost breaking it into 2 different races. And so, I mean, certainly how I approached the trials was very similar to Galen. It was okay, you don't get to go until 18 to 20 miles in. You need to be in the pack, contained within yourself, and you're not going to make a move. You're not going to be an aggressor until 20 miles. And then you can push. And at that point, right, if you've been holding yourself back and there's still something left in the tank, then you can put it all out. But I guess overall, the idea of thinking of it as 2 separate races, the first one is all about relax. The second one is all about press, and kind of having that distinction in your mind. And that also just gives you another milestone to look at. I know that towards the second half of the race, I'm looking for anything to kind of just break up the monotony. It's okay, well, there's 20 coming up, and that's a milestone that's significant somehow. So kind of thinking of things to look forward to. And I just like that 20 number.
Abdi, do you have anything or workout that you do or a mental sort of game that you play with yourself to delineate that 20-mile race and that 6-mile race?
For me, usually I usually do a tempo run where almost like a marathon. I do a 26 miles, kind of the first 6 miles being a 5:30 pace, and then get into the last 20 miles into a 5:10, 5:05 pace. But that's kind of a professional thing,
We're losing you again, Abdi.
Person, I just would tell them, just pace yourself, enjoy the moment, just the way not to hit the
I think we may lose this connection with Abdi.
I'm gonna turn that video off, Abdi.
I know we're trying here. We're trying so hard. Galen, what about you? How do you break up the
Just what
races?
about pace?
Oh, wait, do we have him again?
Yeah, it's like not to worry any pace, and just run the distance, just enjoy the moment, and pace yourself.
There it is.
I think one thing we've all learned in this new world is how to deal with all the fun that happens on Zoom calls. My whole day is spent on one of these things, so nothing I haven't seen at this point. But Galen, what about you? What's the workout you do to kind of help you make that distinction you talked about in your last answer?
I mean, certainly doing a lot of long runs. I think Abdi was talking about that a little bit, and, you don't always have to necessarily go marathon distance. I've done sometimes I'll go longer, sometimes I'll go right up, 25, 26 miles. Sometimes it's only 20, 22, anywhere in there. But I think the biggest thing is just doing stuff where, you're tired, and then, that last, whatever it is, whether it's, 15, 20, 30 minutes, doing something hard, but doing it on tired legs. That for me is, I think, always been something that has been real beneficial, and excuse me, and get me ready for the marathon, because that's really what it feels like. You can never totally replicate what you're going to go through in a marathon race, but the closer you can get in training by doing stuff, whether that's even just lots of interval workouts or doing a tempo run and then having to do fast stuff, just getting used to that feeling of still having to, turn your legs over and perform when they are really tired. It's easy to do that when you're fresh, but you're usually not feeling too hot when you hit 20, 22, 24 miles. And as far as, offering advice, I would just say, just try to hold something back, that especially the first half of the marathon, but even up until 20 miles, I don't think anybody, it's very rare that people finish a marathon and say, it's so much left in the tank. Like, I wish I had just, gone out harder or done that. So, you'd be really surprised at how much time you can gain in that last 6 miles or that last 8 miles of a marathon race. So much more so than you're going to gain by going out too hard and blowing up at the end. You see it so often watching marathon races on TV, how much can change in the last 6 miles of a race. And there might seem gaps or distances that, like, there's no way they're going to get caught. But sure enough, when things really start to go bad in a marathon, they can go downhill in a hurry. And so, constantly just being disciplined. And, I think that a lot of it is about going over in your head, in training runs, when you have those long training runs, or especially, race week and leading up to the race, just saying, I'm going to hold back a little bit and be disciplined no matter how good I feel. There's certainly something to be said for running on feel and being comfortable. But I don't think anybody's ever regretted, taking a little bit easier that 20 miles, and then you end up making it up tenfold in that last 6. So that's the advice that I would give to anybody going for Boston. And just, make sure your legs are used to the pounding. And that's the one thing that I think everybody talks about Boston's notorious for is, not only the uphills, you got to get ready for those, but get your legs used to running downhill, because there's a lot of downhill beforehand. And that's what I think, really saps all the energy out of your legs is all that downhill beforehand. The hills are tough, but if you can get your quads and everything used to that pounding, your body will thank you, at miles 20, 24, 26 when you finish.
Yeah, those first 13 miles have been my undoing at least 5 times in Boston. And one day I'll get it right. But the people running Boston this year, they don't have to run the Boston course. They probably aren't running the Boston Marathon course, but that means they don't have the benefit of, Wellesley and, in Boston College and all the great fan spots out there. You guys, just talking about it, you've done some long runs up to a marathon distance on your own without the crowds at a hard pace. What's the mental trick? How do you get yourself through that? What do you say to the folks who are going to be out there this week with just the support of their family and friends gutting it out, Jake? How do you keep your head straight running for that long, for that hard?
I guess I got to go back to like kind of the 2 races mentality. Like I do see, I think if you get yourself emotionally amped up and you're all like, you're jacked up, this is my marathon, I'm going to go for it from mile 1, that's the marathon is going to take that away from you, right? Like that energy, it's just really hard to sustain that kind of enthusiasm. And so thinking of it as like it's not going to be relaxed, right? Because you're trying to go for, you're trying to push yourself a little bit, but just the kind of idea that the first part of this race up to 15, 18, 20 is about like staying relaxed and kind of preparing yourself. And so you're kind of just building this commitment to the last 6 to 8 miles of the race and kind of having that be your goal. And so, I mean, honestly, some of it I think just comes with experience. I'm kind of in a place now that I just can kind of turn off early on. But, you know, I know, because kind of like Galen, I'll do some of these longer runs where you're going up to 28, 30 miles. I'll do 3-hour long run type of things. And it doesn't matter how good I've been feeling in training. Like, you get to that last hour, I know that I will be tired, and I know that, like, I'm going to have to be ready to motivate myself there towards the end. So yeah, early on in the race, it's mostly about just like, not necessarily enjoy the run, because you still need to get the workout, but like, this is cruising mode. This is like kind of staying contained within yourself and keep focused on your breathing, right? This is relaxed, so that when it comes time to really work, when you have to overcome that, just that leaden feeling in your leg, and, you know, your brain's starting to get hot or whatever it is, and your glasses are so covered with sweat you can't see out of them, like, that you're ready to like attack that towards the end. And I think just, you know, the first half of that race, you just can't be too amped up, right? You just have to remember, like, there's got to be, like you know, saying, save something for the end. Like, it's a long race that will be emotionally draining, and you just have to be ready to know that, like, you can't blow it all in the beginning.
I want to talk a little bit about the Boston Marathon, because that is why we're here. And I know, Jake, you haven't run it, and we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to put you on the spot. But Galen and Abdi, you've seen the many faces of Boston. The marathon, by its very nature, is a pretty fickle event, but Boston seems to be notorious for throwing out that last minute curveball. Abdi, tell us about your experience with the Boston Marathon. That, you know, that 5 or 6 times I think you've run it, from the good to the bad.
You know, Boston Marathon course is one of those courses you just don't. It doesn't matter how many times you run, you just don't know what to expect. You know, you can do all your preparation that you want and everything, but there's no like a marathon like Boston, because of the downhills, the way you're gonna feel toward the end, at the beginning, the middle of the race. There's no like any similar. There's no patches like, or any kilometer that are the same than other Ks, because you either go. I remember I had a great race in Boston one year. I was doing so well. I thought, like, you know, and it doesn't matter how you feel, like Galen say, anything can go south within a second. I remember feeling like so good. I said, okay, today's my day. I'm gonna finish the podium, and then suddenly I went from the back within 30 seconds. It's just like it's just like, Boston is Boston. There's no other place that you can compare. You know, to experience the Boston, you just have to run it. And I don't know how to explain it to people, to be honest. I can tell them.
Galen, you were there. You were second in 2017.
Feel from first half, the second half, it's just the first. When you run the first half, you think it's gonna be so easy because it's downhill, and then you go to the.
Yeah, it is a challenging course to prepare for sure. Galen, you were second in 2017, the same year Abdi was sixth. You were also there in 2018, and I ran that year, and it was miserable. And I remember going back and looking at the video, and you looked miserable. Talk about the weather that hits Boston, and how it can be any different thing on any different day.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've run it twice. First time I ran, it was pretty hot, and I know that was all the talk, which was a little unexpected. And then the second year I ran, it was miserable. You know, it was really cold. I think it snowed the day before. And that day, I mean, there was just a constant wind in your face the whole way, you know, especially given that it's point to point. There was no break from that. You know, the temperature was really low. You know, it was raining sideways, and I generally don't do all that great in the cold. You know, I have some problems with my breathing, asthma, and the cold is a big thing for me. So that one didn't work out too well for me in 2018. But yeah, like Abdi was saying, there's nothing like running in Boston. I think that's what makes it so special, is that, you know, the course is so challenging. There's all these variables with the weather, and, you know, the fan support and the whole weekend there is like nothing you'll see anywhere else, you know. From elite perspective, you know, Mary Kate puts on an unbelievable field, and all the people at John Hancock do such a tremendous job every year of bringing in so many great people, and they just treat you so well. I mean, everything is taken care of, and all you have to do when you get there is worry about the race. And, it's tough getting there with the whole weekend because it's, such a special weekend there in the city of Boston, with Patriots Day, and the whole town gets behind it. I mean, it's just Boston Marathon weekend is such a big event. So, hopefully I can make it back there one of these years, but I always love it. It's one of my favorites to go run. I've had a blast, the 2 times, even though one of them didn't go all that great. And I definitely hope to be back there one of these years.
Jake, I know you've not run it before, but I'm sure that the John Hancock people would love to have you. Is it on your list?
Oh, I think if you're an American marathoner, it's not really a question of whether or not Boston is on your list. It's whether or not you're going to get an opportunity to run it. Certainly, especially because I spent 4 years with the Hansons, and there's a long history with Boston at the Hansons, getting to come up with Desi, but also like Mike Morgan, who, God, I don't know how many Bostons he's run, but it's been a few. And then obviously Keith and Kevin both label a lot. But, it's one of those things where if you tell somebody you run a marathon, I feel like half the time the question is, well, you got in your BQ? Like, it's just such sort of an unspoken connection in marathoning that, like, Boston is kind of the American marathon. And, we also have other great events out there, but I think just in terms of like the history, it's got to be something that, you want to cross off the list. And that was one of the things I was really looking forward to right before COVID hit, was like, we were kind of planning out our schedule, and it was going to be, we're going to go run the 5K the day before Boston. So I was going to go get there to experience the weekend, start planning out my race course strategy, and then hopefully bring that into 2021 to maybe come back and race the race. Like, yeah, it's definitely on the bucket list. It's right up there for sure.
When you guys maybe tell somebody that might not follow the sport that you run marathons, has anybody ever asked you if you've ever qualified for Boston?
Multiple times.
You got that question?
Oh yeah, because I worked in a running store for a while, and like,
Sure.
if you're talking to a person that is not a professional, they are more impressed with a Boston run than with an Olympic trials qualification. For some reason, the Olympic trials doesn't really compute, but you say Boston, and I was like, oh, that's impressive. Like, yeah, and that's not me pandering. That's not me being a joke. It was a little bit annoying. It's like, well, I made the trials. No, about your Boston time. I was like, I don't have one. I'm sorry.
Galen, does anyone ask you if you ever BQ'd?
I haven't got that question directly. They usually ask how I did there. Or, yeah, the Olympics are the other big one. It's like, have you been to the Olympics? Do you go there? But yeah, no, certainly everybody wants to know about Boston, and they'll, they're quick to usually bring up, how they're trying to qualify for, or they want to get in. A lot of people ask me if I can get them into Boston, I guess, but yeah, I don't know if I have that kind of pull.
I think you might. I don't know. I know we're running short on time. I've got just a couple more questions for you. Galen, I wanted to ask you, did you know, because I know you're not a big social media guy, did you know that you're an internet meme right now?
Oh, is this from the mask? Yeah, my mother-in-law sent it to me, actually. She sent it to my wife, and my wife was telling me, and I didn't know what it really meant, but they were kind of explaining it. So she works in healthcare, so she was saying, "Oh, this is so great." But
yeah, I've seen a couple of people who are not at all in the running circle post pictures, and it has, "This is who Galen Rupp is." And it's like, yeah, I'm aware.
The guy that wears a mask, yeah.
Yeah. If you look it up, guys, if you haven't seen it, but it talks about how Galen, won the trials in a mask. So, I'm sure you guys are both excited to get back to racing. Final question for me, Jake and Galen. I'll start with you, Jake. What are you looking forward to most about when we all get back out there?
I talked about this a little bit when COVID first hit, that like, when we get to finally have the Olympics again, I think there's going to be a lot more sort of significance crossing the line, especially, I give high five to Galen coming across the line. And that's not something I do anymore, right? Like, I don't shake competitors' hands anymore because you're not supposed to touch people. And like, most of my interactions with people are behind a mask at this point. And so getting back to racing, ideally, not just kind of these like really small events that have to be super structured, but like racing as we've known it before, like, yeah, crossing a line and being able to like hug a competitor or shake a competitor's hand, like getting back to that sense of camaraderie and togethership. I mean, obviously I love to compete and I love to have those opportunities, but I think, my perspective has changed so much. Like I watch movies or TV shows now from the before times, and like you see people talking close to each other or like walking by each other on the street, and like you can't do that. You're not wearing a mask. And just being able to get back to a place where I can be around a group of people, kind of having a shared experience and feel comfortable and not have to worry about this big looming kind of existential threat that we're all dealing with right now. So I think there's going to be a sense of relief, and there's going to be a lot more kind of emotional significance to being on a start line with somebody or crossing a finish line or even just passing somebody in a race and being able to go close to them and not be scared.
Galen, what are you excited about getting back to racing?
Yeah, I mean, I think just that, getting back to racing, it's been obviously, it feels like an eternity ago when the trials happen and all that. And, a lot of times I think sometimes you forget, how lucky you are to be able to have some of these experiences, and, you take things for granted until they're taken away from you. And so, not having normal races, hopefully they'll be able to have fans there and all that and do it safely. But yeah, it would just be so cool to be able to get back and have that somewhat sense of normalcy, like Jake said, just being able to line up with other people and not be worried about, getting sick, not be worried about passing it on, and just having some sort of sense of normalcy, within our world and the track world, getting back to racing. And I think that, hopefully it will be a really special thing, when the Olympics come back, and hopefully, everything goes smoothly and they're able to go off without a hitch next year, because it will be really cool. It's awesome just having some sports back right now. It was really odd, not having that. But hopefully, again, we can all come together, and the Olympics are so special because it's such a world gathering, and hopefully all the countries of the world, all the athletes from all over will all be able to get together and hopefully put on a great race, and people will be able to see all this time that we're going to get through it. I think that's the thing that I keep telling myself is it will end at some point. Nobody knows when, but hopefully it'll all be over. We'll be able to get back to some sense of normalcy and get back to the Olympics next year. But it's going to be really special for sure, with everybody getting together again and competing.
Well, I hope to see you both in Tokyo next year, and hopefully maybe before. Thank you both for joining us tonight on the Boston Marathon main stage. I want to thank Abdi for pulling over on his way to Flagstaff and trying to connect from our stop. To all of you running the Boston Marathon, whether it be in your backyard or in your favorite running location, best of luck. And I hope we see you next year when you take that right on Hereford and left on Boylston on Patriots Day. Have a great race.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you.